So obviously our agenda has changed a little bit. My understanding is that Ben is still at the budget meeting, that he was not intending to be there this long, but he is still there. So I'm not sure what will happen with the presentation for Teacher of the Month, but we'll figure that out. I'm going to just do a real quick introduction about kind of where this came from and how it ended up that we traveled to Phoenix for this. And then I'm going to turn it over to four of the teachers who went. So Ruth will present first, then Ron, then Leonard, and then Crystal Smith. So basically, some of you who were here last year, Joyce Gormley and I went to the same summit last year. And it was one of those things that she said, I think this would be good, let's go. I said, okay, I looked at some stuff, went PLC. Sure, let's go. I wasn't really sure what we were getting into. And it was really an amazing thing because it provided myself and Joyce with the why behind PLCs. Our district threw PLC on us this time to do collaboration, and that was about it. Go collaborate, teachers. Have fun with it. And I'm just now beginning to understand what that means and what it truly means to be a PLC. So a PLC is not, we don't have a science PLC and an English PLC and a math PLC. PLC is something that describes our entire school. It is a community. It is a cultural belief system at a whole school that they are a professional learning community. So the formal definition per Solution Tree is an ongoing process where educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research to achieve better results for the students they serve. One of the biggest faults I see with the PLC process is that our district has not given us any of the whys. And I'm hoping that that's what I've started doing with some of the PLCs that I'm working with individually and what these four teachers will be able to do today. And then hopefully maybe continuing that work next year. So the last part of this says, it is vital for us to realize that there are dire consequences for our students and society when students do not learn. One of the handouts that you got today is a statistical page that talks about the cost of kids who drop out, the cost of kids who are incarcerated, the number of students or jobs that are needed, higher education, high school education, and it's pretty astounding. I'm not going to go over it with you. That's something you can read on your own. But if we don't make or teach our kids how to learn, there are dire consequences for our society. And from what I've seen, PLC is really the most economical and research-based way to do that. So what I have seen on our campus is that we have a whole staff of amazing, ready-to-go teachers who just don't have the why. They're trying, and you guys are working really, really hard. And I'm hoping that what Solution Tree and this concept can offer us is a path to all going in the same direction. We are all paddling our little hearts out, but we're all paddling in different directions, and I don't feel like we're getting as far as we could if we all get on the same page and move in the same direction. So I knew after I was there last year that we needed to take teachers to this conference because that's where the big work is going to take place. So we were supposed to have representatives from core content, the four core content, circumstances being what they were. We ended up with 2 English, a science, and a social studies. But needless to say, they got some great information. So I'm going to turn it over to Ruth from science. If you don't know Ruth Christo, she's a science teacher. And she is going to talk about her takeaways from the Solution Tree training.
My takeaway here.
Stand this side.
This side? Okay. Okay, good afternoon. Again, if you don't know me by now, that was a song, wasn't it? My name is Ruth Cristo, and I have probably been teaching longer than many of you have been alive. Okay? I'm over 30 years in teaching, and I'm still learning. Okay? And that's one of the things that I'd like to share with you is the why. You know, I'm one of these teachers just like you. They put us into PLC and they say, PLC, do your PLC time. So we meet, We we do book studies, we do lesson studies, we do everything that we thought a PLC should be doing. But now going to this, I realize that all this is good and dandy, and yes, it's very beneficial to us. But we need to trickle it down to the students. Our students need to be able to function. And as I said, after 30 years of teaching, and I told Teresa this today, I'm not teaching the same little animal. You know, I mean, things have changed. In 30 years, if I'm still doing the same thing I did 30 years, I should be out. And I think most of us in here are coming in with new ideas and all this stuff, but in your PLC, we need to figure out why and how and where and all this good stuff. So I'm trying to concentrate on one step at a time here. Most of you, this was one of the handouts. I'm not going to insult your intelligence and go through it with you, but if you have a chance in your PLCs, this is a good beginning. What it is, how to go about it, and then the end result. The end result. What are we trying to do? We're trying to get our students to learn. And by doing this with the PLCs, if we can reteach, revisit, I think most of us, if we evaluate our PLCs, I'm talking from ours, we've gotten the first two questions pretty much there. You know, what do we want to teach? And we've gotten together and we've gone through the curriculum. How do we know, you know, how do we assess this? We've done the common assessments. Now we have all this data, what are we doing with it? I think we need to concentrate on trying to get the students that are falling behind and get them back together. So one of the things on this little thing here, okay, you notice it goes in stages, filling the time, and like I said, I'm not going to insult your intelligence and read it to you, but every little stage has something that you guys can look at, and the end result is stage 7. And I think this is, if we at West Mesa can become a PLC institution, because it's the whole institution that's a PLC. It's not the science department, it's not the English department, it's not the math department, it's the whole school. So if West Mesa can become a PLC, a professional learning community, our students, I think, can succeed. Okay? This is what I got out of it. The guy that did this presentation should have been on Comic Central or something. He was a comedian. He was a wonderful speaker. I'm not doing him justice. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you was this. And again, just to kind of go back, what Teresa was saying is why? Why do we need to do this? And you guys realize that our students are falling behind. And we're the ones that need to get them up there. That's our professional, our moral duty to get these students to where they can succeed. Okay? I don't know if that's enough. I'm through. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm through.
Teresa and I attended the same comic, Mr. Cruz,
Yes.
and one thing that we were all talking about that was pretty funny in regards to what she's talking about is that all the teachers are complaining about the students wearing their low pants, and one of the statements that he made was that if teachers want to raise students' pants, they have to raise students' education. And I thought that was it was hilarious the way he presented it, and it absolutely was fitting with her presentation. My presentation today is on consensus. They told us, you guys are pumped You guys like it? I mean, they were getting standing ovations. Afterwards, we were pumped up. I mean, we had dedicated an hour that we were going to talk after each meeting. We'd sit there for a couple hours, and it was just, I mean, we had a good time talking about it. It was something that all of us were pumped up about. But they warned us. Yeah. Whenever something comes from a workshop, this is going to be the expression from teachers. Oh my God, they're bringing something new. They're expecting us to do something else. So I expect that from you. But just know, don't kill the messenger. We're here just to pass on the enthusiasm for what was learned by us. What is consensus? All of us have a different opinion of what consensus is. In the English department, about 3-4 months ago, we walked out of a room having decided that democracy rules in our English department. 51% is going to be what decides a consensus. After going to this, I've already presented it to our English department. The 51% got shot down at that summit, and they had the data to back it up. They had, if you like it and you raise your hand, that's good enough for you. If you won't sabotage it, if you can endorse it, that should be good enough. The bottom line is, all those have not worked in the PLC. The gentleman, Mr. LaFleur, has a #2 ranked school in the nation. The only school that was above his was a charter school. And his PLC, I mean, this guy is an absolute PLC genius. And he's had these summits. We had 1,500 people at the summit. So I know he gets tons of feedback every year to where he knows what works and what doesn't. The 51% didn't work. I presented it. Who knows what's going to happen in our PLC if we're going to change it? I don't know. This is what he felt was a consensus. When all points of view have been heard and the will of the group is evident, even to those who oppose it. How did he do that? He had what's called a fist to 5. If you are presenting an idea where you want your PLC to go, if you give a 5, you love it. A 4, pretty much. 3, I'm right down the middle. 2, I got questions. 1, I don't really like it. A fist is if I were king, I would veto this right now. Right there, the guy in the blue. Everybody's facing forward. I imagine him having the fist. Can that guy look around and say, hey, there's a consensus from this whole PLC going forward? I think so. So if there's somebody raising a fist and the whole rest of the group within your PLC wants to go forward, that gentleman needs to be addressed, or gentlelady needs to be addressed, needs to be heard out, encouraged, try to be brought back in. But if that person can also acknowledge that the rest of the group wants to go forward, then that is a consensus. So the fist to 5 is the way he did it. Building a consensus. Move to dialogue, not monologue. If you have one person, your chairman, for example, standing up there saying, hey, this is what we want for the department, this is where we need to go, at that point you put yourself in a position to leave people out. The 51% that I was talking about in the English department could potentially leave 5 or 6 people out. If we're building our PLC to raise those pants on our students so that it could be slacks in the business world, 5 or 6 people is going to tear down what we build up. That's the bottom line. And that goes for all the PLCs. 5 or 6 people not bought in, absolutely against it, is going to tear it down. When you have the dialogue, all of a sudden it becomes everybody's PLC that they've built. Everybody's bought in. Everybody has a responsibility. Conversation, not presentation. That was what they presented. I mean, if somebody wants to put a sweet presentation up there and let everybody rip it apart, be willing to have it completely discarded, I don't think a presentation could be that bad, but a lot of people take it personal when they put a lot of work into stuff. So I think it's about the conversation. Get a consensus on the general big ideas first, and then get to the specifics. What is the goal of your PLC? The general goals. What process do you want to work under? Listen to and work with resistors. Guys, we're going to have resistors. The bottom line is this, is that our evaluation in the classroom means everything. If I've been a teacher like Ruth for 30 years and I'm getting a good evaluation from my evaluator, and then all of a sudden we have a PLC building something that changes me, might I be a resistor? Absolutely. I'm sitting there saying, man, you know what? You guys are building this up. I could be the fist up in the air. You guys are building this up. This is my classroom and my evaluation, and this doesn't suit the way I teach. And whenever it's your evaluation, people can tend to be a resistor. So the bottom line is we could have 30-year teachers who are resistors to this. We could have brand new teachers that don't know what they don't know that could be resistors as well. What happens when you leave somebody behind? The fence you built, the PLC you built, gets ripped down. Like I said, resistors could be the very good teachers. Worst of all is the resistors could feel threatened. Everything that I presented up to this point has been Mr. DeFord. Teresa and I went to a gentleman by the name of Casey Reasons. He presented this in regards to feeling threatened. He said, I want all of you to close your eyes and imagine that you're taking pictures at Yellowstone National Park, and that you see a couple of bear cubs sitting there. And you're going, oh man, I'm going to get a picture of this. And all of a sudden, a big mama bear comes up behind you. What do you feel? We all had our eyes closed. It was like, man, we feel fear. We need to get out of here. We feel threatened. Then, he says, close your eyes again. Imagine that you've stayed up all night long preparing for a presentation and that you have it all on your thumb drive. You get up on stage, come, ready to load it into the computer, and it's the wrong one. It's your family photos. What do you do? And all of us, well, we wing it. We do this, all those other things came out. But the bottom line is that it has been proven that animal fear is basically the same as the fear of you not pulling up that thumb drive, not having it. So it works twofold. With your students, when you are instilling fear in your students, as he said, if I come up to a teacher, tell him something right now, give him a hard time, he's going to get a rush, and he's going to have a comeback in 10 minutes, because by the time his frontal lobe starts working, and everything from his emotional side subsides, at that point, that's why it takes so long to have a comeback. And that was the example that Mr. Reasons used. So the bottom line is, when you're getting mad in a PLC, all of a sudden people aren't thinking. All of a sudden it becomes emotional. And it is not a thinking PLC anymore. In your classroom, you get mad at a student, you put them on the spot, you call them out, same thing. They're not thinking, they're not learning, they're getting emotional. He used it for both instances. So for resistors, they're automatically feeling threatened. They are automatically feeling emotional. And I think it's imperative in order to catapult your PLC to the upper echelons of excellence, you have to keep the emotion low down as possible, attacks, keep it absolutely to be gentlemen and gentle ladies, and in the classroom. To be like Charles Barkley, who gave his teammates a hard time, called out fans, called out everybody. He is a top 50 basketball player ever. He was designated that. 0 championships. 0. Not one. None. or to be like Bill Russell, also a top 50 basketball player, a huge humanitarian, 9 Boston Celtic championships, and a Congressional Medal of Honor. The bottom line is our PLC team is the same. You have a Charles Barkley on that team, and you will not be successful as a team. You have a Bill Russell's on your team, and you will be successful, and he's got 9 rings to prove it. So the question is, to be or not to be great. The difference between good and great is making everyone around you better and allowing everyone around you to make you better. Bill Russell. That is the essence of a PLC, is it not? That is the essence of a team. We have the great teachers that, especially new teachers like me, want to get stuff. To have a Miss Kuné and a Miss Fader. It's just Jamie, Moser, Catherine. I mean, it is just essential for a new teacher like me. And I think on the flip side of that, that they gain some understanding of their craft as well from the questions that we ask. But I think as a PLC, we all want to be great. And I think that is the epitome of greatness of a PLC, Bill Russell's quote. Thank you very much.
Okay, for those of you guys that don't know me, my name's Leonard Gomez. This year I am department chair. Not sure what happened there on the screen, but we'll get through that. I've been here for 11 years now, and I've been in the same classroom for 11 years. And there's probably some of you guys that have been here for about 6 or 7 years, and you're like, who the hell are you? So, you know, I've been working the last couple of years to push myself a little bit, you know, further. Been department chair, trying to fill some big shoes from our previous department chair. Teresa came up to me and asked me, would you go on this PLC conference with a group of teachers? And right away I'm like, yes. And inside I'm like, you know, I don't know. I've gone to so many conferences in 11 years, and to be honest, I feel like I've gotten diddly squat out of most of the conferences. And one conference, about 50% of it was okay. And I mean, I'm being brutally honest to you guys right now. I went to this conference, you know, with an open mind, but at the same time, a little bit apprehensive. But to be honest, guys, this was the best conference I've ever been to, ever in my life. Every single presentation that I went to was spot on amazing. And I think the big difference was everybody that was at this conference was a professional that had gone through from the bottom all the way to the top. They had done absolutely everything. They weren't just teachers saying, oh, I got this great idea and I'm an amazing teacher and I'm going to show you guys what it is. And it may not be that great of an idea for everyone. These guys have done everything. They've been through everything. And it really showed through every single presentation. One of the presentations that really caught my eye was a very simple, very basic presentation, and that's what I'm going to kind of focus on with you guys, is we have to try to get ourselves to refocus. If we can't get ourselves to refocus, then we're not doing ourselves any good. We're not doing our students any good. There was 5 instructional shifts that were important to what's going on here. The first shift was talking about getting the students to engage on their own. We have to get them to come up with the strategies on their own in class. And so the thing is, for me, we have to know how much more our students listen to each other. Because I can sit there and I can tell them for 20 minutes the same exact thing 100 different times. But their buddy right next to them can tell them just twice. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it. So we really have to grasp onto that. And we all know that. I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence here because I know that you guys understand that. But I'm trying to bring focus back to that. We have to get ourselves engaging our students more. And so we have the second one, when the teacher provides strategies, provide them as if they are from the students. So if you're coming up with this, I was like, I got these great ideas, I'm so excited about this assignment, try to shift it as, you know, Ben in class today, he talked about this. And I want to bring this up because I really think it's an important idea that he brought up. They latch on to that whenever someone in their class, you know, came up with an idea. The third one, students create the context. Students do the sense making. Students talk to students. It's important to get them involved in absolutely everything. If you can get your classroom running efficiently, then we all know that, then, you know, the amazing things can happen in our classroom. We have to push our students to provide strategies, and the way to prepare for that, guys, is in PLCs. Like I said, I've been one of the biggest resistors when it comes to anything. We got PD coming up. We have a conference coming up. I've been that person in this meeting that's sleeping, that's been working on homework, that's been sending a text to my wife saying, oh, I can't wait to get out of here. I mean, I've been all of that. And honestly, guys, you know, if we want change, we got to change from within ourselves. We really have to really reflect inside of ourselves and say, hey, am I really giving it that full effort every single day and every single moment that I'm here? And if not, what do I need to do to change that? So next slide. What happens when students don't come up with strategies that, you know, we're wanting them to come up with on their own, these ideas? Well, you figure out such ways as simply saying, well, I saw a student do this, and it's kind of like, to me, picturing a campfire right in front of me and just adding another log to the fire. I'm not giving them the whole thing. I'm just adding another log. I saw a student do this, guys. What do you think about this? And getting some conversations going around that subject area. Now, this is what I like. An example, well, hold on. Let me back up real quick. If we really think about it, when it comes to students, ideas are taking so much more from their peers. Even with us as adults. If we got some Joe Schmo coming in here giving us a presentation, and the first instance that we think, oh, I call BS on that, I don't really agree with what they're saying, I shut down myself as a teacher. It's like, I'm not going to listen to anything else they're saying. But if I have a Paul Bernier, a Jim C., a Tanya Cuney, whoever you are, a teacher that we respect highly at this school, if I have, you know, Louisa coming up to me and saying, hey, Leonard, you know, you should try this in your classroom. It's really working well in my class. I'm going to listen because I respect them. And that's what it comes down to. Like, even in our lives, you know, for me, I just got married last year, learning the whole process. It's been a great year of marriage. We celebrated our first year just a couple days ago. But, you know, it's been a learning process. And part of it is, you know, sometimes if I can get my kids to feel like it's their idea, even though it was my idea, then it goes so much smoother. And sometimes I feel like me and my wife play the same tricks with each other. Oh, if I can make it seem like it's her idea, then, you know, things are going to run smooth in life. And, you know, we got to do that. We got to do that just to make sure that we can team build. For the second one, an example of this as a math teacher, because every time I'm here at a presentation, it's always English department or social studies department, and we're always given these prompts that doesn't mean a darn thing to me as a math teacher, I feel like. And so it's nice to actually have an example up there as a math teacher. You know, a simple example is this. You see that equation there, the 3 times -7 minus 10 plus 25 equals 6. So this is one of the examples I was given in one of the presentations. And they're like, well, instead of giving them a word problem and having them figure out what the equation is, work in reverse. Give them the equation and have them create a word problem to fit that equation. And so the way I look at that is this. If I show you guys this crystal apple right here, and I just show you the bottom the whole time, that's all you see. You don't see that it's actually an apple. You don't see that there's anything inside this crystal apple. And so we as teachers, we have to be continuously changing things. We cannot teach the same exact way every time, or else you're just going to see the bottom of the apple. We have to come in just like this right here, giving them that equation, or whatever it equates to inside your guys' department, giving them that equation, and getting them to focus on that, turning it around and saying, okay, now here's the word problem, figure out the equation, and spinning it off everything in between. We have to be able to be flexible as teachers, and I am the biggest obstacle in the way of myself in terms of teaching, because you can't teach an old dog a new trick. I revert back to my old tricks all the time, but as long as I keep refocusing, then I start changing and adapting with what my students' needs are all the time. Mistakes. So in our PLC, we must plan for misconceptions, because we know that our students are going to have, errors in class. We have to create a safe environment in our classroom for those errors. We all know that. We have to provide that safe environment. We have to plan in PLC for those misconceptions. If we don't plan in our PLC for those mistakes, for those misconceptions that are happening, then we're doing ourselves an injustice, because that 5 minutes where we're kind of, struggling for time, it's like, okay, Marissa kind of messed up here. I need to address that, but let's move on over here because I'm not sure. We're not engaging the students and we're losing them. We have to make sure we're prepared for whenever she makes that mistake. Hey, I'm glad you brought that up, because, that's not correct. Let me show you why, though. That's all right. We're going to fix it, and this is how we fix it. And as a class, we talk about it, we fix it, and everybody's on the same page, and we move on to the next part of the lesson. Go ahead. So with that, we have to help students learn to reason. Keywords in mathematics is great, but it's the bare minimum. It's the baseline for us. Getting them to learn keywords, that's the basic type of questioning, level 1, level 2. But if we want them to go and reach that level 3 type of questioning, we have to get them to learn how to understand things. So teaching them to understand and engaging them in the class is the only way. Scaffolding, more important than modeling. I can model everything that I do, but if I don't use all the rest of the parts of scaffolding, clarifying and summarizing and, different types of questioning and all that kind of stuff, then I'm not doing my students a justice. So we have to continuously try to focus and refocus in our classrooms. And that was, she had a whole presentation on a lot of different things, and that was one of the things that was kind of an aha for me. Simple thing, it's like I know I got to do that, and I've been trying to do that, but it really hit home for me. So, how are we going to address this in our PLC? Those 4 questions that we continuously hear that are on the board over there, we have to stay focused on what those 4 questions really mean. It doesn't mean always sitting there and saying, okay, number 1, how do I address this? Number 2, how do I address this? We can do that in our own ways. And that's what's great as being teachers. We're all individuals. We all bring something different to the table. And these questions need to be addressed in our PLC, but it's up to us how we address them. And those instructional shifts, like that one instructional shift that I wanted to present to you, was getting the students to bring up the ideas, getting them to kind of move the lesson along, is really an important strategy that I think would be very useful for a lot of us. Thank you.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I am Crystal Smith. I teach both biology and English, which is a challenge sometimes, but I love it. So I was blessed to be able to go on this trip as well. And one of the biggest takeaways that I got from this was really focusing on the why, and not just why are we doing PLC, but asking the why for everything that we do. And I think so many times I do this, you know, teaching 3 different preps. I do this all the time because I'm like, I don't have time, I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this. And then I'm like, okay, so what is it that I'm doing, and why am I doing it that way? Is there a better way to do it? So, one of the keynotes that I went to had to do with grading in general. I have always been fascinated with grading and the ideas behind grading and why we grade the way that we do. And so one of the big questions that they came up was the purpose. What's the purpose of grades? Why do we attribute a letter or a value to students' achievement, to their behavior, to all of these things? And so we had to ask the question, why do we grade? And we had conversations about it, and we established that a lot of it is to communicate with students, with parents, with school districts, with the government, as to how our students are achieving. And that was the thing that we really focused on and what we established as the most important aspect of grading, was that we need to know how our students are doing. And so obviously we have the standards, right? We have Common Core, we have New Mexico science standards, and benchmarks for that. They have provided us with these levels that we have to make sure that our students are at when they leave our class. And so a lot of it was, okay, if we use letter grades, if we use percentages, is that really establishing the communication that we want our grades to be establishing? Is that actually providing the information that we need? And most times it's not. Across the board, and they had tons of statistics for this, but across the board, both math and English and all subjects in between, they realized that a lot of grading varies, anywhere from 20% to 90% for the same essay or even the same math problem. And so obviously it's not effective. If me and Miss Fader and Miss Cunet and, you know, Rebecca and all these people are grading the same assignment and we're getting different grades for it, then how do we know if that student achieved what they needed to achieve? How do we know if they're meeting the standards that they need to be meeting? And this is where standard-based grading comes into play. So, once we've established the why, then we go into the what, okay? So we have why are we grading, then there's the what do we grade, and that we have the standards for, right? That's our goal, is for them to meet those standards. And then once we have the what, we can go into the how, okay? How are we gonna start grading? How are we going to establish a common grading system if we're in the same school or the same district or whatever, maybe even across the nation? But professional judgment comes into play here. We know our students well. We see them every day or every other day. We know their lives. We know what they go through. We know the struggles that they have. We know the skills that they need and the skills that they're excellent at. So we then are the best judge for whether or not our students are achieving the standard that they need to be achieving. So why do we use mathematical algorithms to figure it out for us? This is something that they presented in one of, in this keynote. And it's standard-based grading, where it's all on a rubric score from 1 to 4. 1 being struggling, 4 being exemplary. And so we have different targets, so that would be the standard, so whatever target that is, whether it's in math, English, social studies, science. And then they had the list of students, and those are dates right there, so 9/9, 9/14, those are dates for those assignments. And if we look at Greg, he is struggling, and then all of a sudden something clicks, and he understands that standard. He finally understands that target, whatever that target is. And so we're at the end of the 6 weeks, and we have to come up with a grade. Are we going to average out those numbers? No, probably not, right? Because what happens is if we average that out, it ends up being 1 point or 2 something, okay? If we take the median, it ends up being 1. If we take the mode, it ends up being 1. So does that accurately portray the student's achievement on that standard? No, right? So using our professional judgment, if we believe that he has actually met that standard, then our grade needs to communicate that. Because that's the purpose, is to communicate achievement. So how many of you, by raising your hand, would not give him a 4? Exactly. So, and then you would just go through the same thing throughout all of that. So Rachel's 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3 probably would give her a 3, right? That's the most recent information that you have on that particular standard. Now, if we jump down to David, he's all over the place. He's 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1. He doesn't seem to get it. Sometimes he gets it, sometimes he doesn't. And obviously, this is where us knowing our kids comes into play. We know maybe David's parents were getting a divorce, and maybe some days were harder than others. Maybe his grandma died that last week. Maybe something happened in his life that's making him or affecting his ability to perform on whatever assessment that you are using. And so it could be the assessment type. It could be maybe he's really good, so maybe he's getting 3s on a very particular type of assessment that's assessing that standard. And then the other ones is a different type of assessment, and those are the ones he's struggling on. But either way, you have a greater understanding of where the holes are. And that's really something that we need to start thinking about, is if we're using grades to simply communicate to parents and students and the district and the government how our students are doing, then it kind of falls flat. We're no longer using it to better our teaching so that we can better student learning. And so that's really why standards-based grading was really pushed here, was that we can use the information that we find in order to improve or enhance our teaching methods, to improve our reteaching of things if we see certain holes in certain types of assessments or certain standards specifically, so that we can go back to what are our students learning? Are they learning what they need to be learning? How do we know? Those 4 questions of PLC, right? So, what's effective? When we are grading specifically, through whether we're using standards-based grading or we're choosing to use percentages or letter grades or whatever that is, what's effective for communicating achievement? And pretty much unanimously at this conference, there were like 500 teachers in this room, 300 teachers in this room. Every single one of them said that rubrics would be more efficient and more effective at grading than percentages. Rubrics over percentages. Now, why do we use percentages? It's easy, right? It's simple to go ahead and go in and say, okay, well, you got this one wrong, this one wrong, this one wrong, and tally it up and say, okay, you got a 75% because you missed this many on the test or whatever. But does that communicate what we need to communicate? Does that show the student particularly, okay, I am struggling in these areas, but I'm not struggling in these areas? does that communicate to you as a teacher what you need to reteach? Unless every single test you end up compiling all that data yourself and looking at it specifically, which is more work, right? So rubrics, and I actually gave you guys in the packet. I was really, really excited about this when I got back. So I did a lot of work. I did like 10 hours of work, and you guys get it for free. So at the very end, there is a rubric that I created that is aligned with standards-based grading. It should be on the very, very, very back page. Should look like this. And this obviously is just an English example. I could have given you biology examples, but I didn't want to waste all of your time and paper. So, but it's on the 1 through 4 system for standards-based grading. 1 being struggling, 4 being exemplary. Now, obviously, using a rubric takes more time, especially if you're the kind of teacher that likes to write in the margins anyway and stuff like that. But it allows the students to know, what is it that I need to work on? It allows you to know, hey, 50% of my students aren't doing well on this particular portion of the rubric. Maybe I need to reteach something. Maybe the way I taught it didn't work, right? So it's going back to enhancing our teaching so that we can enhance student learning. So obvious challenges here for standards-based grading. We have a system that is A through F, that is 0 through 100%. I looked at a lot of these challenges, and a lot of them were addressed at the summit. And I figured out through Synergy that you can actually create your own grading type, which I have done, which I am now, for the last 3 weeks, I have been actually piloting in my classroom, and my students love it. There is a way that in your own classroom, if you want to do standards-based grading, how you can indeed do that inside the system that we already have. I did a lot of the work for you guys, so if you just want to come talk to me, I would be more than happy to show you how to do the Synergy stuff, how to, and my PLC has been amazing because they're like, yeah, this looks cool, so they're helping me be more finite in a lot of the assignments that I'm creating so that they can be aligned with the standards-based and be more explicit so our students can know what's expected of them so that they can perform better. I don't know, my vision is kind of crazy, but I think it would be awesome if we all went to standards-based grading and helped the district see, like, this is better. This is a better way of doing it, and helping APS move to that so that we don't have to finesse our way and have it mesh with the current system. It would just be the system. A lot of elementary schools actually already do this in APS, so it wouldn't be too difficult of a transition. And this is where PLC teams play a huge role. I could not do this as well as you see it if I didn't have help. I had all these crazy ideas, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I want to put this down on paper, and I want to do these things. And if I hadn't talked to my PLC about it, if I hadn't talked to Luann about it and been like, okay, this is kind of what I'm thinking, what do you think? Then it wouldn't be where it is today, and we're still working on it. I'm still piloting stuff. I've got a binder that I'm going to have my kids put stuff in for next year, and I'm still changing that format, and I'm still fiddling with a lot of this stuff. So this is where our PLCs are super important. We need to make sure that we are collaborating, that even when we have resistors and even when we have people that are like, standards-based grading kind of scares me. I don't really want to deal with that. I'm glad that you're doing it, but it's a lot of work. And I'm not going to lie, it is a lot of work. I'm lucky enough that I am bounding with energy all the time, so I can do that right now. And I want you guys to come to me and ask me, like, hey, how did you do this? Hey, do you have something like this that I can use or whatever? And I've already done it for my science classes, so it wouldn't be difficult for me to help you guys apply it to social studies or arts or whatever that is. So that's kind of where I am. That's it.
Does anybody have any questions for any of them about any of the information that was presented today, or the thoughts or comments about anything? I'm gonna borrow your book here real quick. Sure. This is the book that we get at the summit. So what they do is every presentation, whether it's one that you go to or not, they put the slides for all presentations for the whole summit together in a book. So you have them all. So there's a ton of information in here that if you want more information or you want to look at it, all of us have one. You can ask for anything that may help you via email. I will put there all of the handouts that you got today, as well as the PowerPoint presentation in the Google Drive. Marcus's students are taping this, so if you have a colleague who was unable to join us and has questions, they can watch it. And then I will put some other information. There's so much stuff that narrowing down 4 days of a summit to a 12-minute presentation was very tricky for everybody. So there's so much more in there. If your PLC finds themselves having conversations regarding today's presentations and where to go next and kind of what to do, there is the website allthingsplc.com. Has huge resources on there. It is produced by Solution Tree. Everything on it is free. There is no sign up or register to use it. You can go on there, and if you want to look at standards-based grading, you can click on grading and it'll limit your search to just grading policies. So it's a really user-friendly website. You can do that. You can come see any of us. If you have questions about your PLC, if you want me to come to a PLC and talk about different things, please feel free to do that. And hopefully this kind of helped us. I know PLCs are sort of tricky right now, or this week they're fine. But starting next week, we go back to our crazy schedule with testing and proctoring and PLC this day but not this day and that kind of stuff. So it's a really good time to start these conversations, because if you start a conversation and you don't see your PLC again for a week, it's a real easy conversation to pick up. So if you have thoughts or questions or concerns, please come see any of us about those things. Any of the handouts you didn't get or want additional copies for anybody not here, or your PLC in general, you can pull them off the Google Drive. I will send that link up after everything is posted. Any other questions or concerns? Mark next month's staff meeting on your calendars. It will be our celebration staff meeting, so I hope that everybody will begin making arrangements for now so that you can join us. The second Tuesday of the month, I haven't looked at the date yet, but it will be a celebration PLC, similar to what we did at the end of the year last year, because it will be our last one. Crazy to think about. So thank you all for coming, and have a great afternoon.
Before you guys leave, math and English teachers, if y'all would hang out for just 2 minutes with me. Everybody else, you're free to go, but math and English, if you'll indulge.